Electrolysis by recovering DNA in a salt trap. Electrolysis by recovering DNA in a dialysis bag. Electrolysis with the recovery of DNA in a membrane. Degradation of agarose with the enzyme agarose. Phenolic extraction with the use of low melting point agarose, hot phenol, and purification with magnetic beads. In order to carry out the DNA purification, it must first be resolved in an agarose gel by electrophoresis. This allows us to distinguish the band that is of our interest. Subsequently, the band embedded in the gel is cut with the aid of a knife and purification is carried out, for which various methods can be selected, such as those described below. The purification of DNA of a specific size becomes necessary when we have resolved segments of DNA in the same sample and only one of them interests us. For example, when a PCR reaction is performed and more than one band is observed when visualizing on an agarose gel, non-specific products assess template, or instead also when performing enzymatic digestion of a plasmid with the intention of subclone a fragment into a second vector.
The expected PCR product was 447 PV. However, in the gel we can observe two bands when the expected one would be only one. This may be because they have non-specific products. However, there is no contamination with protein salts that could indicate star activity in the enzymes, and that could be because of non-specific products, so it would be advisable to run another gel with a different percentage of agarose so that the sample can migrate better and can clearly distinguish the number of base pairs and the number of bands. For spectrophotometry DNA data is not available. However, the analysis could be done with the results of the previous practice, taking into account that these purifications requires agarose in order to calculate the purification performance.
There are some important points that we have to take care for improving our skills, and this depends on how we manage some reagents, or how we prepare some solutions, or load some volumes, or follow exactly like centrifugation speeds or temperatures, or these kind of things that are to the type of protocol that you use to purify your DNA. These kind of things are important, and we think that we have to pay more attention or try new ways for understanding better the variables that affect these results. Well, in our case, the electrophoresis wasn't that enough for us, because the principal objective of using the electrophoresis in our case was comparing both samples previous to the purification and after purification. But as the sample previous to purification don't give us good results, or weren't enough in quantity, because they can be visualized, or some problems there in the preparation of that sample and loading into the gel. The principal comparison we have to use was the absorbance, but the electrophoresis of the purified DNA was useful just for visualizing the migration of this purified DNA, but the sample load in it was different to the sample used for previous to the purification. So for that reason, it cannot be compared. On the other hand, the absorbance was one of the suitable ways. The purity obtained from the purified DNA was greater than the purity of the non-purified DNA. This is because the removal of some contaminants by any purification method, that in our case we use the silic column. When I refer to DNA, in our case it was a PCR product. In this time, differing with the results of electrophoresis of our PCR product, we use another sample for the analysis and purification, because last time we don't got the results that we were expecting, so we have to use another sample, and we noticed that at least for bands it was greater in the purified DNA.
The yield obtained from the purification of a PCR product from agarose gel was optimal, as well as the maintenance of the purity in the sample. Therefore, it is concluded that the process was carried out satisfactorily according to the established standards. It is important to mention that a critical point in practice was a prior note of the technique of column purifications, since they must note and abide by the specific times to avoid desnaturalization of the sample. And although in this case the practice gave satisfactory results, it should be considered that the ability in this stage of process is learned based on experience since human errors were still present in basic process such as electrophoresis or when recording the results in the log. To avoid confusion in the results, it is essential to maintain the control and labeling the samples.